The room glittered with champagne and laughter, golden light bouncing off crystal glasses as my twin brother Dylan and his fiancée soaked in the glow of their engagement party. Everyone looked perfect, smiling, clinking glasses, snapping pictures, everyone except me, standing half-hidden near the back, pretending not to care. My mother's laugh carried above the music, that familiar mix of pride and performance she saved for social occasions. My father's arm rested proudly around Dylan's shoulders as he cleared his throat for a toast. I expected a story, a memory, maybe something about how proud they were of his promotion or how he'd finally settled down. But then Dad reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. The applause grew louder as he handed it to my brother with a knowing smile. Dylan tore it open, his grin widening as he read. This is incredible, he breathed. I leaned forward slightly, my heart quickening without reason. What is it? Someone asked. Dad's voice boomed. It's the deed to the downtown apartment. My apartment. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But when Dylan turned toward me, pride flashing in his eyes, I knew. He didn't even look surprised, almost like he'd known all along. The crowd erupted in cheers, glasses raised high as my vision blurred. Champagne sloshed over my fingers, but I didn't feel it. I stood there, invisible in my own story, realizing this wasn't just about property, it was about being erased. My name is Lila, and this isn't a story about losing an apartment. It's about the moment I finally stopped begging to be seen. From the beginning, Dylan had always been the one who mattered. When he got a B-, Dad took him out for pizza. When I made the honor roll, Mom barely looked up from slicing Dylan's cake. By 27, I'd built my own quiet life, a marketing job downtown, a tiny flat on the edge of the city, and a fragile hope that maybe someday they'd notice me. That's when Mom called with what she called a family opportunity. She and Dad offered Grandma's old apartment for rent, 3/4 the market rate, she'd said proudly, like it was an act of kindness. I should have known better. The first time I walked inside, the smell of mildew hit me before I found the light switch. The carpet squished under my feet, the walls were the color of nicotine, and the bathroom tiles crumbled like chalk. It wasn't a gift, it was a dumping ground for their neglect. Still, I took it, because a part of me was still that little girl waiting for approval. Over the next 5 years, I transformed it piece by piece. Paint-stained hands, late nights, paychecks disappearing into plumbing, flooring, wiring, appliances. Every corner became proof that I could create something beautiful without anyone's help. It wasn't just an apartment, it was me, rebuilt from the ground up. And yet, standing in that crowded room years later, watching my father hand the deed to Dylan, I realized none of it had ever been mine. I had no idea that moment wouldn't just take my apartment, it would change who I was forever. A week after the engagement party, I could still hear the echo of applause in my head, the cheers, the laughter, the way no one noticed me slipping out the door. My phone buzzed with family messages pretending nothing had happened, as if I hadn't watched my father hand away 5 years of my life like a party favor. But that night kept replaying in my mind, the smile on Dylan's face, the way Dad's eyes had shone with pride, the warm congratulations that filled every corner of the room except the space where I stood frozen. The truth was, this betrayal hadn't begun at that party. It had been building for years, one small slight at a time. When Dylan forgot my birthday one year, my parents laughed it off. When I missed his, they called me selfish. When he wrecked his first car, Dad bought him another one. When mine broke down, I took the bus for months. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need their approval, but deep down, it always did. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. 5 years before that party, I was 27 and exhausted from long commutes, cheap rent, and quiet loneliness. Then Mom called. "Lila," she said, voice dripping with that tone she used when she wanted something to sound generous, "your dad and I were thinking you could live in Grandma's old apartment. We'll charge you less than market rent. It'll help you save." It sounded reasonable, almost kind. When I moved in, though, reality hit fast. The place was falling apart, the floorboards soft, the air stale, and the walls stained from years of neglect. It was barely livable. Still, I took it. I told myself it was a start, that maybe fixing it up would finally earn their respect. For months, my weekends vanished under layers of dust and paint. I tore up old carpet with my bare hands, patched holes, scrubbed walls until my fingers ached. I replaced the kitchen tiles, the bathroom sink, even the light fixtures. My paychecks went straight into that apartment, but I didn't care. I was building something that finally felt like mine. My parents would drop by occasionally, pretending to admire the work. "You're really improving this place," Mom would say, running her hand along the fresh paint. "It'll be worth so much more when you're done." She said it like I was renovating their investment, not my home. Still, hearing even that tiny acknowledgement felt like sunlight. I let myself believe it meant something. Then one evening, a year before Dylan's engagement, they came by unannounced. I still remember how my father sat on the couch I bought, his hands clasped tightly, the weight of bad news hanging in the air. "Lila, we need your help," he said. "We're behind on the mortgage for this place. The bank's threatening to foreclose." My stomach dropped. "How much?" "30,000. I froze. That was most of my savings, everything I'd worked for. "We'll pay you back," Mom promised quickly. "Think of it as an investment, it'll be yours one day anyway." Dad nodded. "You've made this place beautiful. We'll make it official when things settle down." And I believed them. Of course I did. They were my parents. I wired them the money the next day, trusting their word, never realizing I was buying into the biggest lie of my life. I thought saving that apartment would finally make it mine, but what I really bought was the price of betrayal. For months after wiring my parents that $30,000, life slipped back into a comfortable rhythm. I went to work, came home, watered my plants, and felt proud every time I unlocked my apartment door. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, or so I believed. My parents stopped mentioning the mortgage, and I took that silence as peace. I'd done the right thing. I'd helped them, saved the place, secured my future. But silence can hide rot, and I didn't see how deep it ran until the night Dylan called. It was an ordinary Wednesday. I was closing my laptop when his name flashed on my screen. "Hey, sis," he said, his voice bright and buzzing. "Guess what? Mia and I are getting engaged." I smiled despite myself. "Wow, that's great, Dylan. Congratulations." For a moment, I almost forgot everything, the favoritism, the small cruelties. He sounded happy, and that made me happy too. "There's going to be an engagement party in 2 weeks at her parents' place," he continued. "You'll come, right?" Of course I said yes. He was my brother. Even after everything, part of me still wanted to be part of the family. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. I bought a new dress, wrapped a thoughtful gift, and even practiced smiling in the mirror. I told myself maybe this time, things would be different. Maybe the years had softened them. When I arrived at Mia's parents' home, the lights shimmered through the tall windows, and laughter spilled into the night air. Inside, the rooms glowed with warmth, people I hadn't seen in years hugging me, music playing, champagne glasses clinking. For the first hour, it was easy to pretend everything was normal. Dylan was radiant, Mia stunning, my parents beaming with pride. Then Dad cleared his throat and asked for everyone's attention. He stood in the center of the room with Mom at his side, both of them smiling like royalty about to make an announcement. "We just want to say how proud we are of our son," he began, voice filled with pride. "He's become such a fine man, and we wanted to give him and Mia something special to start their life together." My stomach twisted. I told myself it would be a car, maybe a down payment, something symbolic. But when Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, my breath caught. Dylan opened it, grinning wider with every second. This is the deed to the apartment," he said, voice shaking. The room erupted in applause. My apartment. My hands went numb. I gripped my champagne glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Mom stepped forward, glowing. "We wanted Dylan and Mia to have a place of their own," she said. It just made sense. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to speak, to tell them what that place had cost me, but my throat locked. All I could do was stand there while everyone celebrated, while my parents smiled like heroes. That night, I didn't say a word, but silence was about to become my sharpest weapon. I don't remember driving home from that engagement party. Just flashes, the laughter echoing in my head, the taste of champagne that had gone bitter in my mouth, the hum of tires against the road as tears blurred the city lights. By the time I reached the apartment, my apartment, though it no longer felt like it, I was shaking. I kicked off my heels, sat on the couch I bought, and stared at the walls I had painted with my own hands. Every inch of that place carried my fingerprint, my effort, my hope. And in a single night, they'd erased it all. I poured a glass of wine and told myself it couldn't be real, that there must have been some misunderstanding. Maybe Dad had meant something else. Maybe it wasn't official. But when my phone buzzed the next morning, the illusion shattered completely. It was a text from Dylan. "Hey, Layla. Mom and Dad said you need to move out ASAP. 2 days should be enough, right?" I stared at the screen, rereading it over and over until the words lost meaning. 2 days. 2 days to pack up 5 years of my life. I called my parents, but they didn't answer. When Mom finally picked up hours later, her tone was ice. "Dylan and Mia need the apartment," she said simply. "We've been more than generous letting you stay there all this time." Generous? My voice cracked. I paid rent. I renovated every inch of this place. I gave you $30,000 to save it. "Don't exaggerate, Layla," she snapped. "You were living cheaply. You should be grateful." That word, grateful, hit harder than anything else. It was always their weapon of choice. I hung up without another word and sank to the floor. The silence in the apartment pressed against me like a weight. It wasn't just about the money or the apartment. It was about what they'd made me believe, that no matter how hard I worked, I would never deserve what came to Dylan effortlessly. For the first time, the grief burned away, replaced by something sharper, cleaner. Anger. A kind of clarity I'd never felt before. They wanted me gone? Fine. I'd leave. But not empty-handed. That night, I called Harper, my closest friend since college. "Can I crash with you for a few days?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even hesitate. "Of course. But what's going on?" I swallowed hard. "My family," I said softly. "They just took everything. Harper was quiet for a moment, then sighed. You can stay at my brother Eric's place, he's overseas for work. It's empty, and you won't have to pay rent. Relief washed over me, but beneath it was something else, a spark of an idea. A dangerous one. If my parents thought they could humiliate me and walk away with everything I built, they were about to learn how wrong they were. They wanted me out in 2 days, but by the time I left, they'd regret ever underestimating me. By morning, my decision was made. If they wanted me gone, fine, but I was taking back everything that was mine. I woke up before sunrise, sat in the middle of my living room, and looked around at the space I'd built from the ground up. Every light fixture, every outlet, every inch of flooring was something I had paid for. They had called it their property, but I had receipts that told another story. I opened my laptop and called the service company that had helped install everything years ago. The man on the phone sounded puzzled when I told him what I needed. You want us to remove all the appliances and fixtures? Ma'am, that'll leave the place pretty bare. That's the point, I said. Everything that was mine goes with me. When the crew arrived a few hours later, I watched as they dismantled the apartment piece by piece. The dishwasher I bought after the old one flooded? Gone. The fridge that had saved me during that heat wave? Loaded into the truck. Even the stove, the one that had sparked dangerously before I replaced it, was unscrewed and carried out. The workers hesitated when I told them to take the laminate flooring too, but I had the receipt ready. Every plank, I said. It's all mine. It took the entire day. The apartment that had once glowed with warmth was now stripped bare, just cold walls and concrete beneath the sunlight. I should have felt empty, but instead, I felt lighter. Every removed fixture was a small act of taking my power back. That evening, I called the moving company. They packed up my furniture, my boxes, my appliances, and by midnight, everything was loaded into a truck. Harper met me at Eric's house, handing me a spare key and a tired smile. You did what you had to, she said. I nodded, but part of me still couldn't believe it was real. Before going to bed, I wrote a short note and placed the apartment keys inside an envelope. I've moved out as requested. The apartment is yours now. I sent it by courier to my parents' address. The next morning, my phone started vibrating before I was even awake. Mom. Dad. Dylan. Over and over again. I ignored the calls, but the messages poured in. You had no right to do that. We're calling the police. You destroyed our property. You'll pay for this, Lila. By noon, I finally answered one call. What the hell did you do? Mom screamed the second I picked up. I moved out, I said calmly. Like you asked. You gutted the apartment. You took everything. Everything I paid for, I replied. You think this is funny? She hissed. You're being spiteful. Vindictive. I laughed, but it came out broken. No, Mom. I'm being fair. For once. They thought that was the end of my revenge, but I hadn't even started yet. The more they called, the calmer I felt. For years, I had let their words tear me down, but that morning, their outrage sounded like music. Mom's threats about police, Dad's silence in the background, Dylan's furious texts, they didn't scare me anymore. When she finally stopped yelling, I spoke evenly, almost coldly. You tricked me into paying your mortgage, I said. You gave away my home, and now you're angry I took back what I paid for? There was a pause so heavy I could almost hear her shame trying to breathe. Then her tone softened, pretending to be reasonable. We can work this out, Lila. Maybe we'll consider that $30,000 you gave us as a wedding gift for Dylan. I froze, gripping my phone until my knuckles whitened. A wedding gift? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound human. You stole my money and called it love. You stole my work and called it generosity. Don't be dramatic, she snapped, but her voice trembled. You always twist things. No, Mom, I said quietly, I'm finally seeing things straight. Then I hung up. I blocked their numbers, sat in silence, and stared out the window of Eric's empty house. The world outside felt different, wider, sharper, mine. For the first time, their control had no hold on me. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one piece left on the board. A blue Honda Civic that had been sitting in their driveway for 3 years, a car I had bought and lent to them temporarily. I was still paying the insurance, the title was still in my name. They had never given it back. Until now. I called a towing company and gave them the address. You're sure you're the legal owner? The dispatcher asked. Positive, I said, pulling up the paperwork to prove it. An hour later, the driver called. Ma'am, I've got your car. The couple here didn't look happy, but once I showed them the ownership documents, they couldn't stop me. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Bring it to this address, I said, giving him Eric's. When the car rolled into the driveway, I stood in the sunlight, running my hand along the familiar blue hood. It gleamed like a small victory, quiet but satisfying. 15 minutes later, my phone lit up again with new numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer, but the texts came through anyway. You stole our car. We need that for work. How could you be this cruel? You're dead to us, Lila. Dylan's final message read, don't bother coming to the wedding. I stared at that one for a long time, then laughed. As if I'd ever celebrate the people who stole from me. But what I didn't know then was that my revenge was about to ripple farther than I ever planned, straight into Dylan's perfect little world. 3 weeks later, I sold the Honda for $12,000. Watching the buyer drive it away felt like watching a piece of closure disappear down the street, clean, quiet, final. It wasn't the full $30,000 my parents had taken, but it was enough to remind me that they couldn't erase me completely. I deposited the check, smiled for the first time in months, and decided not to look back. But the universe wasn't done twisting the story. 2 weeks later, an unfamiliar name lit up my phone, Mia. I hadn't spoken to her since the engagement party, but curiosity won. Hey, Mia, I said cautiously. Her voice sounded tired, frayed at the edges. Lila, can we meet? Please. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She looked different, no makeup, eyes red, the glow from that party long gone. She didn't waste time. Your parents told me everything, she said softly. About the apartment, the money, everything that happened. They're saying you tried to destroy them. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course they are. But, she continued, leaning closer, I don't think you did anything wrong. Not after hearing what really happened. I frowned. What did Dylan tell you? Mia hesitated, twisting her engagement ring before slipping it off. He said you were jealous. That you wanted to ruin our happiness. That you were always competing with him. My throat tightened. And you believe that? She shook her head. Not after I heard the full story. Lila, I've been to that apartment. I saw how much work you put in. I didn't know you paid rent. I didn't know you saved it from foreclosure with your own money. I just thought, her voice broke, I thought your parents were helping you. I took a deep breath. That's the story they like to tell. She stared at her coffee for a long moment, then whispered, I can't marry into a family like that. The way Dylan spoke about you, it made me sick. He doesn't feel sorry for what they did. He laughed about it. The words hit me harder than I expected. Part of me wanted to defend him, the brother I once loved, but another part of me knew this was exactly who he was. Do what's right for you, I said finally. Don't let my story decide your life. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. It already has, she whispered. A month later, Aunt Denise called me out of the blue. Lila, have you heard? Mia called off the wedding. I didn't say anything. Your parents are furious. They're blaming you. Saying you poisoned her against them. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Of course they are, I said quietly. It's easier to hate me than to admit what they did. The wedding was gone, my family hated me, and for the first time in my life, I finally felt free. But freedom came with its own silence, and I wasn't sure yet if I could live with it. 6 months passed before I heard from any of them again. In that time, I learned how quiet real peace could be. Eric's house became my sanctuary, big, calm, and filled with the sound of nothing but my own breathing. I found new routines, simple ones that didn't revolve around waiting for anyone's approval. I started cooking again, reading late into the night, saving every paycheck instead of pouring it into someone else's promises. Every time my phone lit up with an unknown number, I didn't even flinch anymore. I had blocked all of them, Mom, Dad, Dylan, and it was the most liberating act of my life. Aunt Denise was the only one I still spoke to, mostly because she didn't pick sides, she just listened. She told me my parents were still furious, that Dylan had moved back into the apartment after Mia left him. Apparently, the place looked terrible now. He and my parents had tried to fix it up, but nothing worked. The walls I'd restored were cracking again, the plumbing failing, the same problems I had poured years into repairing had returned. It almost felt poetic, like the place itself was rejecting them. They're saying it's cursed, Aunt Denise said with a little laugh. I smiled quietly, stirring my coffee. It's not cursed, I said. It just knows who it belongs to. Still, even with all that satisfaction, there were nights when the silence got too loud. I'd sit by the window, looking out at the city lights, wondering if maybe I'd gone too far. But then I'd remember that text, you have 2 days to move out, and the doubt would fade. Sometimes survival looks like revenge, and sometimes revenge is just what survival becomes. Harper called often, checking in. You seem lighter, she told me once. I'm getting there, I said. I was. Slowly, painfully, but honestly. I was saving for a down payment, building something truly mine this time, no strings, no ghosts, no fake promises. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. Just tired, in a peaceful kind of way. My parents still tried to reach out through other relatives, messages about healing and moving forward, but I ignored every one of them. They had made their choice when they handed my life to Dylan. I made mine when I walked away. Sometimes people call that bitterness. I call it closure. The funny thing about cutting ties is that once the noise fades, you realize how much of your life was spent trying to be heard by people who never wanted to listen. And once you stop trying, you finally start living. But peace doesn't erase scars, and as I started to rebuild from nothing, one question haunted me: could I ever trust love again, or had my family broken that part of me for good? It's been over a year since the day I walked out of that apartment for the last time, and sometimes I still catch myself thinking about the girl who stood in that room holding a trembling champagne glass, watching her family celebrate her erasure. She was small, desperate, always waiting for approval that was never coming. I don't recognize her anymore. These days, I wake up in a small but sunlit apartment of my own, a place I bought with my own money, no hidden strings, no debts disguised as favors. The walls are painted soft ivory, the kind of color that makes morning light feel warm instead of cold. Every piece of furniture here is mine, every detail chosen because it makes me happy, not because I hoped someone else would finally be proud. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I scroll through old photos, birthdays, holidays, that engagement party, and it feels like watching someone else's life. I don't hate them anymore. Not my parents, not Dylan. Hatred keeps you tethered, and I've spent too long chained to them already. What I feel now is distance. Clean, unshakable distance. Dylan still lives in the apartment, or what's left of it. Aunt Denise said the plumbing burst again, ruining the floors. They had to gut half of it and spend a fortune fixing it. I didn't gloat when she told me. I just smiled, because life has a way of teaching lessons even I couldn't. I never told her this, but I kept every receipt, every document that proved what I paid for. They're in a folder tucked at the back of my closet, not because I plan to use them, but because they remind me of who I became when I finally decided to stop being their victim. Harper says I'm different now, calmer, steadier. You don't flinch when people disappoint you anymore, she said once. She's right. When you've already survived being betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most, disappointment stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like weather. You notice it, but it doesn't shake you. I still think about Dylan sometimes, about the boy I used to share birthday cakes with, the brother I once believed was my best friend. I wonder if he ever thinks about me, or if he's too busy pretending I don't exist. Maybe that's for the best. The truth is, I don't need closure from them anymore. The only closure I ever needed was the sound of my own front door clicking shut behind me the day I finally walked away. That was the moment I chose myself. And if anyone ever asks what I learned from it all, I'll tell them this: sometimes family isn't who raises you, it's who respects you. And sometimes, saving yourself means burning the bridge that leads back home. Because the hardest truth I ever learned is also the simplest one: some people don't deserve a second chance at your peace, no matter how many times they call it love. I spoke evenly, almost coldly. You tricked me into paying your mortgage, I said. You gave away my home, and now you're angry I took back what I paid for? There was a pause so heavy I could almost hear her shame trying to breathe. Then her tone softened, pretending to be reasonable. We can work this out, Lila. Maybe we'll consider that $30,000 you gave us as a wedding gift for Dylan. I froze, gripping my phone until my knuckles whitened. A wedding gift? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound human. You stole my money and called it love. You stole my work and called it generosity. Don't be dramatic, she snapped, but her voice trembled. You always twist things. No, Mom, I said quietly, I'm finally seeing things straight. Then I hung up. I blocked their numbers, sat in silence, and stared out the window of Eric's empty house. The world outside felt different, wider, sharper, mine. For the first time, their control had no hold on me. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one piece left on the board. A blue Honda Civic that had been sitting in their driveway for 3 years, a car I had bought and lent to them temporarily. I was still paying the insurance, the title was still in my name. They had never given it back. Until now. I called the towing company and gave them the address. You're sure you're the legal owner? the dispatcher asked. Positive, I said, pulling up the paperwork to prove it. An hour later, the driver called. Ma'am, I've got your car. The couple here didn't look happy, but once I showed them the ownership documents, they couldn't stop me. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Bring it to this address, I said, giving him Eric's. When the car rolled into the driveway, I stood in the sunlight, running my hand along the familiar blue hood. It gleamed like a small victory, quiet but satisfying. 15 minutes later, my phone lit up again with new numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer, but the texts came through anyway. You stole our car. We need that for work. How could you be this cruel? You're dead to us, Lila. Dylan's final message read, "Don't bother coming to the wedding." I stared at that one for a long time, then laughed. As if I'd ever celebrate the people who stole from me. But what I didn't know then was that my revenge was about to ripple farther than I ever planned, straight into Dylan's perfect little world. 3 weeks later, I sold the Honda for $12,000. Watching the buyer drive it away felt like watching a piece of closure disappear down the street, clean, quiet, final. It wasn't the full $30,000 my parents had taken, but it was enough to remind me that they couldn't erase me completely. I deposited the check, smiled for the first time in months, and decided not to look back. But the universe wasn't done twisting the story. 2 weeks later, an unfamiliar name lit up my phone, Mia. I hadn't spoken to her since the engagement party, but curiosity won. Hey, Mia, I said cautiously. Her voice sounded tired, frayed at the edges. Lila, can we meet? Please. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She looked different, no makeup, eyes red, the glow from that party long gone. She didn't waste time. Your parents told me everything,